next hour, we'll save our conversation about how people have lost their minds about the quarterback competition. We'll get into more details later. But Zac Jackson is in with us now, and Zac wrote a column today ranking the Browns' your confidence level in the Browns' position groups.
Yeah, it was basically just a unique way to get out some thoughts.
I like that. It is.
Know?
It's a different angle.
And so safety was clearly number one, which says about the state of things.
That's a sad state of affairs.
Now, I do think when you look out there that Denzel Boston and Emmanuel Warren are the two guys who you're just like, wow, this is raw talent. This is what they needed.
Right.
And they not necessarily needed at safety, but Ronnie Hickman's in a contract year. He's playing his butt off. And they paid Grant Delpit because Grant Delpit's a good leader and was a really good player last year. Like, he played at a Pro Bowl level. He's a success story, right? And now he's the second longest tenured player on the team.
So that is crazy to think about.
Yeah, like, and the other guys like Chris Edmonds is leading camp in interceptions. And this Daniel Thomas, who they brought in just for the offseason, is like out there blasting guys every day. So the safety group is good.
Yeah.
The corner group is really good at the top and then really thin. Like Tyson Campbell mostly got the day off yesterday.
Yeah.
And every pass went to the guy that was in his spot.
Right.
So that's good quarterbacking.
Yeah.
No, that's fair. Right. And kudos where it's due.
Right,
like,
exactly.
Attack the weakness.
So any injuries at corner, they're in trouble.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's the ebb and flow of camp, and it's getting ready. Like, for the guys in charge, you're not just evaluating players, you're evaluating what your weaknesses are and what your emergency move would be. Every team has an emergency list. But, like, what would it be if Denzel Ward went down for 6 weeks? You know?
Not good.
Other than just the normal, which is play for next year.
All right. What else? So corner was 2?
No. Let's see. Defensive end was up there because Jared Verse is just dominating camp.
Yeah.
And Alex Wright looks good as well.
What did you think about Verse's comments where he basically ripped Myles Garrett? When he talked about the quote we put the other day.
He talked last week about.
I took it as ripping Myles Garrett.
Yeah, I don't take it as. I didn't take it as ripping Myles Garrett in the same light you did, but he basically was talking about changing the culture. He said sacks, tackles for loss are nice. I'm here to win games. I'm here to make Cleveland
which
feel.
is nice to say.
Yeah,
like he's not going to have 23 sacks. So, but no, like he is earning.
You didn't take that as a knock at Myles. Okay,
zero. That's a stretch.
I guess I'm just stirring it up. I'm working for clicks.
Apparently. I mean, do I think the trade was made for cultural reasons?
Yes. Yeah.
But then they turn around, camp starts, and they're chasing Jadeveon Clowney. Like, they can't get out of their own way. That's what they do, right? True. So, but no, Jared Verse has been awesome. He's staying after practice, working with Spencer Fano.
I wanted to ask about that real quick. Do you mind if I interrupt this?
Yeah.
Todd Monken talked about how in those 5-6 minutes of those two working together, Verse and Fano after practice, he was like, I actually saw an improvement from Spencer based off what Jared Verse.
That's awesome.
How common is something like that? Because you're there every day. You see it all. We get the little snippets and we hear the things we hear. But how common is it for a player to take a rookie under his wing, especially a rookie in a different position? And I know Shador's doing it with Taylor Green too. So just to explain that part of it, how common is that?
I don't think it's super common for a guy of like Verse's stature to do that. But I do think it's common in terms of like one little tweak can help the guy.
Okay.
Because he's a rookie. He's out there swimming. And he's getting every other day reps with the number one. So he comes in his mind, every rep has to be perfect. So he's out there. And then Jared Verse is kicking his butt sometimes. So Verse is like, hey, I beat you this way because I knew your feet were set a certain way. And Shador's saying to Taylor Green, hey, last year when I got in and I knew I was only getting 4 throws, like I was trying to throw everyone for a touchdown. Just like if they tell you to throw it to the tight end, throw it to the tight end, get to the next rep. So that's what this is. And especially, it's the same pertains to us on the outside. We're watching, and this is the only time we're allowed to watch, and there's competition at multiple spots, starting at quarterback. But it's one rep, it's one day, it's what these guys like. We know who the investments are in Fano and McNeil Warren and Mason Graham and all of these guys. And so for the guys in the middle, they're trying to get better. And it is alarming that they would take a guy in Spencer Fano in the top 10 and not know that he's the left tackle. I think they should know, but Todd Monken came out and said, or at least hinted, we're not sure. But by the same token, he's 7 days in to his first NFL training camp. And if Jared Verse is coaching him up, that's part of the process of him getting better. Like, he is going to get torched at some point this year.
Yeah.
Okay? That doesn't mean his career's over. It means he's a 21-year-old left tackle.
Right.
When is it time to start getting concerned that Fano hasn't taken hold of the left tackle? I don't think we're there yet.
I would say so there's 3 more practices this week, and then there's 3 practices next week, and then a preseason. I think after that first preseason game, it's time to say, okay, like, let's see where guys stand as it relates to week 1. I've always thought Sunday, August 23rd would be the day we get the quarterback decision for a couple of reasons. The Bills scrimmage is on the 20th. The second preseason game is on the 22nd. And that day, the 23rd, is exactly 3 weeks. Right. So you can shift everything from camp mode to let's get ready.
To week one mode.
To win a game. So, yeah. So, like, these next 6 practices are huge. And they're in pads today and they're in pads Saturday. And by the head coach's count, the installation ends today. But I really think after the first preseason game, when guys have had a chance to actually be in a game, most of them, and the coaches have now seen 3 full weeks of practice or close to that. Now it's like, okay, what's a concern? Yeah. Where are we really trying to get ready to win a game, and where are we still just letting guys compete?
In terms of Fano, is part of the reason he hasn't been inserted into that full-time left tackle spot with the ones because of how DeJuan Jones has played, or do you think it's just still him acclimating to an NFL level?
I think it's acclimating to an NFL level, but I certainly think it's an element not necessarily of how Jones has played, but the Browns still want to get something out of this investment. They're like, this is still a unique player. He's not been healthy, but we've seen him with starting ability. We've seen him not be able to build, mostly for injury reasons, on any success that he's had, and he's under contract. So, like, these tackles, especially guys like DeJuan Jones, like DeJuan has impressed the Browns. He has committed to his body the last 2 years. He just hasn't stayed healthy.
Yeah.
If DeJuan was still a slob and still missing practices like he was early in his career, then they probably wouldn't be doing this. But this is about trying to. The position is just so important.
Do you have faith in DeJuan?
If Fano is not the starter week 1, that's bad.
It's bad.
It's failure.
It is.
Yeah,
it's a failure. There's no other way to say it. And again, it doesn't mean that his career won't go a certain way.
Right.
But the organization failed.
Yes.
If a guy you took in the top 10 to play left tackle for 10 years, or at least for 5, is not the day one starter.
I can't get out of my head how horrible DeJuan looked at left tackle last year at the start of the year. Like, he was
really bad.
He was benched.
Right.
After 2 games, it was like, this is a disaster. Yeah. This cannot continue. And then he got hurt. So I can't believe that in the span of 12 months, it went from that bad to where he could now be the best.
Right. So yes. So that just like if they even realistically entertain the thought of putting Deshaun Watson out there for one play, that's at least somewhat of an indictment of the other guy.
Yeah.
So like, because wanting to get something out of DeJuan and having DeJuan on the roster because he can do it is one thing, but your top 10 pick needs to be playing.
Yeah, top 10 pick. The only time a top 10 pick shouldn't play, assuming they're healthy, is a quarterback possibly.
Correct.
Or if you happen to be a really good team that happen to have a top 10 pick, and it's at a position where a guy's going to be moving on next year or something like that, which is not the case here.
When the Chiefs made the trade and they had the 9th pick this year, and if they had drafted someone at a position they already had just for future depth as the replacement down the road, like
when it was clear when you drafted him, this is for next year.
Yeah.
But that is clearly not the case.
That's right.
So you're right. It doesn't mean it's a permanent disaster. But at least initially, it's a disaster.
Right. And it's still too early, right? We're 7 practices into camp. But, like, again, that Buffalo game, the first preseason game, we don't know how it's going to go. And he says the starters are going to play. And I think most of them are going to play, like, 2 drafts. You still have to play the young guys. You still have to evaluate guys.
Yeah.
But then you move on, and then you have your joint practice. And you have a second preseason game where now you've said, okay, this is who we need to see more. This is what we need to work on, rather than just what they're doing every day, which is 2 groups of offense. They're running the same 4 plays. They go. The only differentiation in most practices is the end of practice, and that's usually situational drill. And sometimes that's not even full speed.
Yeah. You mentioned in the article that you wrote, defensive tackle was the group you had the least confidence in because they don't have any healthy defensive
just
tackle.
currently.
How bad is the health situation in that defensive tackle room right now?
Put it this way. they've changed the practice schedule to extend the breaks between drills because the defensive tackles, they just don't have enough. They signed a guy from the UFL on Sunday night or Monday morning, and then they claimed a guy the next day just because they needed because Kamara was hurt. Yeah. Mason Graham's missed 2 days. Mike Hall's missed 2 or 3 days. Malik Collins is still on PUP, and he's on schedule. He's working out every day. They don't have anybody. So this was a huge camp for Mike Hall to get starters reps, and he's not been on the field. And Mason Graham looked awesome, and he's not been on the field.
What's going on with Mason Graham?
I don't know. Todd said this is mostly about temporary. Than anything else. But you do worry because Mason Graham missed a couple days in the spring.
Yeah.
He came out, he looked really, really good in the first 4 or 5 days of camp. And so if it's just this week, like, we know Schwessinger's okay.
Right.
He's working out, he's standing on the sideline of practice. Mason Graham's not been on the field. Mike Hall's not been on the field.
That's not a great sign. Doesn't mean
Kamara,
disaster, but
in individual drills gets carted off.
Right.
So
that right now the season starts, they'd be using their 5th and 6th defensive.
And Sam Kamara is a guy who's probably going to start the season on the practice squad and then play if he needs to. Right. But like he's also a guy getting number 1 reps because you don't have anybody else.
Yeah.
So now, like, guys who will get reps with the 3s or 4s are not reps at all, are playing against the 1s.
And quarterback second from the bottom, of course.
Yeah, I didn't want to put it last. Like, it's awful.
Yeah.
The overall play is awful.
Yeah. What's third from the bottom?
Probably tight end,
Okay.
just because it's Fannin, and then it's
There's nothing.
really nobody else because
Yeah.
Joe Royer's not there.
Yeah, what
You know, Carson Ryan's trying to win a fullback job.
Yeah. What's the Royer situation? Do we know what's going on there?
No, I've been
Mm.
ghosted by everyone that I've reached out to.
there's some speculation, but I don't feel comfortable even
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard.
putting it.
Is that not in?
I don't know if it's
Yeah.
true or not, so just
Yeah.
just
Okay.
leave it untouched.
Okay.
But it's Andrew Berry said it's personal reasons, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
And he did come to camp because he's not on any exempt list. So he
Okay.
reported with the rookies back on the 23rd.
Right.
But then when he wasn't there the first day of full camp, it was a valid question. Where is he?
Right.
He's gone for personal reasons.